our head coach of our Lobo football program, Bronco Mandel.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel on Sunday, September 22nd to end ALS. We've high-fived thousands of participants, raised millions of dollars, and impacted hundreds of families. With your help, the good keeps growing. Register at walkandwheelnm.org. See you there.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Ladies and gentlemen, from La Casa de los Lobos, the pit, here at the University of New Mexico, let's get ready to rumble!
Let me hit you with the triple hey.
Hey!
How's it going, everybody? My name is Ryan Tamori. Hope Albuquerque, you're doing well. Enjoyed the first full weekend of, 5 straight days of football. Rick, I'll ask you about that here in a bit. Busy show. I don't even know if I introduced myself. My name is Ryan Tamori. Haven't done this in a week, so it's not like riding a bike. A lot to get to today. Ben Wysong will be joining us roughly about 8:30ish, 8:45ish. Of course, former UNM linebacker, Lobo back. Nick Coppola, hopefully I pronounced it right, Coppola, from the Las Cruces Sun News. We'll be talking Aggies, and we'll break down what is the start of Auburn. We made the executive decision last night to not go head to head with whatever political landscape, whatever was going on in the political landscape in the United States last night. So we apologize to anybody who was probably looking forward to that. Before I move any further, affordable service, heating, plumbing, and air conditioning for your HVAC needs in Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. Affordable Service has been in business in New Mexico since 1986 and is still locally owned. During that time, they've served more than 40,000 customers, providing complete residential and light commercial HVAC services, including heating, cooling, electrical, and plumbing. Affordable Service takes pride in their staff and their commitment to the Albuquerque and Rio Rancho area. He is a two-time, he's always one of the usual suspects on the show, or a member of the gang, as I still have from the movie The Usual Suspects. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. He's a two-time, not once, but twice, offensive state lineman for San Juan Mendoza and the St. Pius Spartans. He played for Damian Segura at St. Pius. He's got an MBA from UNM. And as I always say, his most esteemed credential, an MVP of a 35 and over Filipino men's league in the Bay Area. His name's Richard Thompson. Rick, how you doing?
Good. Every time you mention those old accolades of mine, it makes me feel older and older. And I think we just real quick got to remember September 11th today. We were freshmen in high school, and I think I was actually set to play my first freshman game there at St. Pius as a nose guard at the time, and we found out about the news and they quickly canceled the game. So I'm happy to be here, happy to talk with these guests, but let's remember that also. But thanks for having me, Ryan.
Of course. Everybody on this podcast know my live show site, whatever you want to call it, and still podcast. My roots are Central New Jersey. Both my parents are from there. I worked in Manhattan. I am a New Mexican. I consider myself a New Mexican and New Jerseyite. My friends might disagree with that because I am from New Mexico. I worked in Manhattan. I've been to the 9/11 Museum. I was in Manhattan and downtown New York, downtown Manhattan and Battery Park on July 31st, 2001. Decided to do something touristy, and we took the double-decker buses tour around. And about a month later, 5 weeks later, that happened. And my grandmother died a week after September 11th. So my mom and dad went out there and could still see the plume of smoke. I don't know what you want to call it. I love Manhattan. I love Vegas. My heart belongs in San Diego. But if you've never been to New York, you have to understand. And I took Rick there, so he got to experience. But anyway, I don't want to keep our first guest waiting. And before I do that, I'm going to make her wait like another 15 seconds longer, and I apologize. Hey, check us out. Follow us on social media. The artist formerly known as Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Want to bring our first guest in, and very happy to have her on. We've kind of partnered with the ALS chapter of New Mexico. Her name is Katie Crouch. She is the new, not so new, but president and CEO of ALS New Mexico. I had the pleasure of meeting Joe Cordova, and I won't harp on that. But her name is Katie Crouch. Katie, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you guys?
We are hanging in there.
You know, it's so crazy. You were talking about 9/11, and everyone knows exactly where they were when that tragedy struck. And I remember I was in 5th grade, maybe 6th grade, and my dad worked for the Department of Defense, and he actually was kind of stuck on base down in Holloman and Alamogordo. And it was so scary as a kid, just not really knowing what was going on. So we all have really scary stories like that. But I'm glad that you guys brought that up, and we're always going to remember that day, unfortunately.
I was talking to my mom about it last night. She still remembers where she was when Kennedy got shot. And I can remember Matt Lauer talking and the second plane hitting, watching the Today Show in my house, which is eerie. On a much lighter note, at least, at least we've remembered it. I've got New Jersey. I've got my New York Giants hat on.
There you go.
The Mets lost today.
No, I'm so sorry for your
Katie,
loss.
I appreciate that. My day is over. We wanted to bring you on to talk about the walk and will to end ALS on September 22nd, 2024. Can you fill our listeners in on that?
Yeah, so this is our 24th year hosting the ALS Walk. This is the first year that it is called the Walk and Wheel to End ALS. And we really just wanted to make the event very inclusive to all of our families and our patients living with ALS. So hence the Walk and the Wheel. And, you know, it's our community event. It's strictly geared towards our families and just kind of coming out and supporting them and raising some money so that we can continue to provide services to all of our families with ALS across the state. It's at the UNM track and soccer field, which is just right behind the football field. And it starts around 9 a.m. and opening ceremony will start around 9:40. We're doing a really cool thing this year. It's called the Ristra of Hope. And basically what we're going to be doing is building a ristra with 4 different colored chili peppers. Each color will represent why people are walking. So it's, you know, you have ALS, you're walking in honor of somebody that's living with ALS, you're walking in memory of somebody with ALS, and you're walking to support ALS. So we're going to build this really cool ristra of hope that we can continue to bring out to our future walks. And we will have a little memorial hall as well that's going to be themed like Dia de los Muertos to kind of backpack off of just the culture here and just celebrating those lives that we've lost from ALS.
I know your focus is the walk and will to end ALS. You guys do a fashion show and a golf tournament every year. Can you elaborate on those as well?
Yeah, so our fashion show has grown significantly. I've been around for about 8 years, and so has the event. And I think we started off at Casa Esencia when you could still, you know, hang out and party there. It was like a tea room style, so there was probably about 80 to 100 people there. And then last year we had close to 400, and we raised close to $160,000. The first year I think we raised 25,000. So that event has just blown up. It's been incredible. We focus local. It's all local, right? So we focus on local boutiques, local models. Tito's Handmade Vodka has always been our presenting sponsor. So they'll do specialty cocktails, and it's always the Thursday before Valentine's Day. So it's a perfect night for gal pals, for Valentine's Day, or if you want to take your, you know, your sweetheart out and bid on some really cool items. So that's a great event for everybody, really. That's at the Marriott Uptown. This year it's going to be the 13th of February. And then we have our golf tournament, which is the biggest golf tournament, charity golf tournament, I should say, in the Southwest. We had 110 foursomes this year. Huge event. We bring in former athletes, NFL players, NBA players, baseball players, all of that. This next year, we're going to kind of shift it to more localized celebrities so we can kind of hone in again on that local piece. But Ryan, I know you've been out there. You've seen how big it is, and double shotgun, 2 courses. It's a behemoth of an event. So we put a lot of time and effort in the first 2 quarters of the year to really get those events off the ground and get as many supporters out there as we can.
I first saw it in 2021 or 2022, and I was unaware of it. But the amount you took up, I think I'd heard 108 teams this last year, and you might have just said it, but when I got there, I was just blown away that you had so many players. You were using Twin Warriors and Sandia, and it just, not Sandia, excuse me, Twin Warriors and Santa Ana. Yeah, it just boggled my mind. So I know I've already talked to Eric, because Eric played in it this year because he does healthcare on our boring day jobs.
Yeah.
Not
And
talk,
Eric's actually on our
not
board.
talking shit about UNM. Oh, go ahead.
No, Eric's awesome. He's on our board and he's been involved with us for years now. And yeah, his company puts in, I think, like 5 or 6 teams. So HME Specialist is always out there doing their thing. We love to see it.
Is there
well, I might.
is there a website where we can go check this out and where people like me can learn about ALS? Because I don't even
Yeah.
really know much about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So our website is New Mexico ALS, all spelled out.org. And a little bit about the organization. We're the only organization in the state that helps folks with ALS. We have a 4-tiered support of services. So we have a clinic that folks can attend that's free of charge. We cover their co-pays. That's at the UNM neuro, oh gosh, I'm going to screw it up, the neuro center. And they go every 3 months and they can see 7 disciplinaries and get that all taken care of. And then they go back and get checked to see how long their progression and all that has changed, which is great because, you know, you exude a lot of energy and it makes it really hard for folks to get out and just do our normal day-to-day that we're used to doing. So we try to make it easy for them. We also have care grants that they can apply for up to $2,500. And that's just for medical expenses because it is a super expensive disease. I think annually it's about $250,000. So, and it's fatal. So you can have it for a year, you could have it for 5 years. You know, there's some people like Gene Pino that have had it for around 13 years. So we just try to ease that burden for them. We also have resource groups every month that folks can tune into. And then we also do some advocacy and we donate money to research as well.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. How did you end up in this position when you first worked for the ALS chapter of New Mexico? I hope I said that right, or ALS New Mexico. How did you find yourself? How did you get involved?
Well, I came from the film industry, and when I was in school at UNM, I was getting my degree in mass media communications, and I really wanted to focus on doing documentary work and kind of marrying film and nonprofits together. And I ended up getting an internship on the very, very tail end of Breaking Bad. So I did that for about 2.5 years. And then this just kind of fell in my lap, and I knew nothing about ALS. I did not have a connection to ALS. And all it took was just me going to clinic one day and just absolutely knowing that this is what I needed to do with my life. So I started back in 2016, and I came into the CEO position at the beginning of the year. So kind of worked my way up, and I know we mentioned Joe earlier. He was an incredible mentor to me and has really gotten me to where I'm at as a leader, and just getting the organization where it's at too. I mean, it's grown significantly. So we're very thankful for him, and we've got some really cool stuff planned for next year. We're going to try to do a benefit concert at Revel Entertainment. The Chavez family is they're great supporters of ours. And then we want to do an art show. So there's other little, filler fundraisers that we're wanting to do next year just to kind of expand a little bit on our events.
Well, we are here to help. Reach out to us whenever, we'll push it out. I have to ask you about Joe because that's who I met. And I think he's kind of a comical guy. He's a big Lobo fan. This is a sports centric show. I wouldn't be doing myself justice. I mean, he knows a lot. He was like Mayor McCheese. Like when I first met him, he knew everybody. Just talk about how he networks and like all the athletes I know, and just throwing out names. I know he knows like LaDainian Tomlinson very well. But just talk about that because he's a friendly, bubbly guy.
Yeah. So anything that's Lobo affiliated, that guy is on the boots on the ground. He's always networking. That guy does not know a stranger, which I also try to kind of mimic that and kind of backpack off of that. But yeah, he's heavily involved in the sports scene. That's kind of why the golf tournament got so big, is because he had a great amount of support in the sports community. And he has a background when he worked for the Boys and Girls Club and worked with a lot of professional athletes. So he kind of took that and wanted to build the golf tournament and bring in these celebrities. And so we've done that for about the past four years. I think it was 2020 when we first brought those guys in. And Robin Cole has been a part of it for years. Bruce Heron, who's also a Lobo. These guys all played back when Joe was in college. So they're still great supporters of ours. They come in every year, great guys. And yeah, they come out and they have a great time. They play with our sponsors, and it's a long day, but it's a good day. Yeah, the golf tournament is a beast. It's about a 3-day event. We have a welcome reception Sunday, full day of golf Monday, and then reception Tuesday night, and then Monday night, and then Tuesday night we give them like a farewell breakfast too. So it's a beast, but we love it. It's really fun, and it's nice because it's early enough in the season where it's not scorching hot, and people can still go out and have a good time and not get absolutely roasted by the sun. So.
Or tanked.
Or tanked. We've had a couple of those too. We've had a couple of situations, I always like to say that when people go golfing or they get on the golf course, it's like a lawless land. Truly. They're just like, I have no responsibilities. I'm just going to have the best time ever, which is great because that's what we want them to do. But we definitely have some stories.
I wouldn't lie if I said I've never referred to a golf course as a lawless land, and I love that. I will use that.
It's pretty lawless. It is pretty lawless.
Yes. And then you get those guys together who haven't seen each other in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Lastly, and I didn't kind of reflect on it. I mean, your title, president and CEO of ALS New Mexico. I mean, what does that mean to you?
I've never been asked that question before. That's a good question. I grew up in a nonprofit, philanthropic household. So giving back and helping people has always been a big passion of mine. And it feels really good to continue to be able to support, folks that are struggling. And especially with a disease like ALS, it's 100% fatal. It's different for everybody. And just being able to kind of help them navigate and guide them along that process. And even after they pass, we still keep in touch with the families and make sure that there's support there, because if you haven't been, impacted by ALS, it's kind of hard to understand the grasp of it, but it is a monster of a disease. And we just really, really try to just show a lot of love and care and support to the families that are going through it.
That's that St. Pius education paying off with that question. I'm glad I threw that in there.
Hey, I wasn't St. Pius. My husband was St. Pius, and he actually did play for Segura as well. So.
That was a knock on me. That's what I was saying.
You.
That was
okay.
that St. Pius education
I was like,
question coming
out.
out.
Okay.
Yeah. No. I was making fun of myself there. Look, I offended myself. The joke didn't land. The only joke that I find offensive is one that doesn't land. Is there anything else you can add about about the walk and ALS? I try sometimes.
I honestly, the biggest thing is just coming out and supporting. I mean, even just being there, even if you don't want to donate, even if you don't want to walk, just being there in person and showing these families support. It can be very lonely at times when people get diagnosed. A lot of people, they don't really know how to handle it. So they kind of like take a step back, whether it's family, friend, whatever. And so even just a smile from a stranger on walk day is huge for these families. And we try to make it special for them. And if you have some extra funds to throw our way, we know it's kind of a crazy year with the elections and just stuff going on in the world. But all the money that we raise here stays here. This is the first year in our history that 100% of the money stays in New Mexico. And we're very proud of that. So $5, save your Starbucks coffee for one day and throw it our way. And we'll be very, very grateful for that. So come on out.
Or if you're Ryan, save some of your $20 parlays and donate it, Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan, save your $20 parlays, my dude.
It was rough tonight. As I'm looking at that, it's rough tonight. Thank you guys for reminding me. Her name is Katie Crouch. She is the president and CEO of ALS New Mexico. They have their 2024, and it's the first of this walk and wheel to end ALS. Katie, you are welcome on all the time. I know you're friendly with Eric. I've met you in the past. I love Joe, and with that connection there, you are always welcome on this show, whatever we can do to promote. I hope you have a good, well, we'll probably talk to him, but we will plug the show again, or excuse me, the walk. It is, let me put that banner back up. Sometimes it's not easy producing and hosting the show. 2024 Walk and Wheels to NALS, September 22nd. That's Sunday in 2 weeks. And it's at the UNM track and soccer complex. And you said roughly about 9:00, or did I make that up?
Yep. Nope. 9:00. Yep. 9:00.
Perfect. Katie, we appreciate you joining us here on the Pit Press. We appreciate you joining us here on the Pit Press Live. We will talk to you down the road.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Go Lobos.
Thanks, Katie.
Have a good one. That was Katie Crouch from the ALS New Mexico. I kept calling it the chapter. When I first met Joe, I met Joe Cordova. He's awesome. As we were talking about, again, all of that information is available on their website, newmexicoals.org. And then, you know what, I'll show that later. And then again, here, just one more time, 2024 Walk and Wheels to end ALS, September 22nd, 2024, UNM Track and Soccer Complex at 9 a.m. It's a good fun. You can donate your $5 and, like me, not use it on your parlay. Unless you hit a parlay, then I'll donate more. Quickly to the comments before we get into the subject. Ben Wysong, roughly in about, 3 minutes. I didn't get to Hugh Freeze's big package. And then slots of fun, Rick. David Fresquez, Ricky and Ryan, great guest. Thanks. Hey, all right.
Miguel Sanchez.
Whoa, got to give it up to my main man. He is no longer Lionel Hutz. He is Miguel Sanchez. Lobos are 2-0 against the spread, plus 28 against Auburn. That got thumped by Cal. Maybe a good wager. Yes, we will get into that. I want to do this first, and I know it's the segueing of the murder to the jet skiing squirrel, but I picked up the Auburn game notes this week. And does anybody remember this?
Al is in Dadeville, Alabama. Hey, Al.
Hey, Paul. How you doing?
Well, thanks.
When Bear Bryant died, I was living in Texas, and I really didn't understand the Alabama-Auburn rivalry. But a good friend of mine that lived in Birmingham sent me a copy of the newspaper showing the Auburn students rolling Toomer's Corner celebrating Bryant's death.
Now stop. I even though I know what you just got through saying, and even though I know you're quoting from a newspaper, I just have the most difficult time ever believing that Auburn students rolled Toomer's Corner when the news broke that Coach Bryant died. Does anyone else remember that? I don't.
Do you want me to send you a copy of I still have a newspaper clipping.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of awkward here because I'm not doubting your truthfulness. I'm just, are you guys in the other room in as much shock as I am? That is just one of the most shocking things I've ever heard. I do not want to believe that is true.
Okay, let me finish my story.
Okay.
This year I was at the Iron Bowl.
There's no way that could be true.
Well, okay. This year I was at the Iron Bowl.
Okay.
And I saw where they put a Scam Newton jersey on Bear Bryant's statue.
Okay. I mean, again, that's 28 years later.
Oh, okay. Well, let me tell you what I did. The weekend after the Iron Bowl, I went to Auburn, Alabama, because I live 30 miles away,
Sure.
and I poisoned the 2 Toomer's trees.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
I put Spike 80 DL in them.
Did they die?
Do what?
Did they die?
They're not dead yet, but they
will.
They definitely will die.
Is that against the law to poison a tree?
Well, do you think I care?
No.
Okay, I really don't. Hey, and you can tell Tammy, I hope, never mind.
Okay.
Roll down Tide.
I'm going to.
Well, okay. So if you don't know the story behind that, and the reason I'm talking about that is, I'm glad you got a chuckle out of it. So if you don't know the story, that is the 2010 season. Alabama had just won the national title. And then in 2010, the whole Cam Newton went there. I think they were unranked going into the season. And they got caught fire, and Cam Newton became a national sensation. Then his dad had Mississippi State. Auburn had paid him to go there. So he was there illegally. That's the gist of it. Well, they came back and beat Alabama that year in Tuscaloosa. I think they were down 24-0 or 21-0. They came back and won the game. Auburn came back and won the game 28-24. It was kind of one of Cam Newton's Heisman moments. And that gentleman, Harvey Updike, rest in peace, called in as Dale, or Al from Dadeville, to the Paul Feinbaum show. So thank you to the courtesy of the Paul Feinbaum show, and said that he went down to Toomer's Corner and poisoned the oak trees there. And if you don't know what that is, there's a pharmacy on the corner. I've never been to Auburn, Alabama. We will definitely talk to Ben about that today, and then Saturday, and then next week. There were trees at the corner of these streets. And if you don't know this, which I'm sure our listeners do, they rolled it with toilet paper. So what a waste of toilet paper. But that guy went down there after the Auburn fans put a Scam Newton jersey on Paul Bear Bryant's statue. And then apparently they had celebrated when Paul Bear Bryant died. But he went down there and poisoned, and he called in and he got arrested and basically gave himself up by calling into the Paul Feinbaum show. The reason I played that, because I'm glad Ben, we'll get to him in a second. He's talking in our private chat, but the real big reason is the oak trees at Toomer Corners are mature enough for fans to roll for the first time in 2016 season. The first roll of the current trees came in August 2023 when Auburn's Megan Schofield won the U.S. Women's Amateur Golf Championship, which I'm gathering she went to Auburn. So I want to thank Auburn, Alabama's Game Notes for that. Rick, you don't display it on here, but I know you've got the best sense of humor. I know you remember that story. I just wanted your thoughts.
I mean, it just shows you how intense football is taken in other parts of the country, especially in the South. And I was lucky enough, I've been to a game at Florida State, not in Alabama down there, Auburn, but the way that the fans act and the kind of clique or cult mentality that they have in those places is a whole different atmosphere. It was almost uncomfortable for me to be, because I didn't know the correct tomahawk chop and those type of things. So when you hear people doing crazy shit like this, it's deeper than family in some places. That's how they consider these teams. And young people grow up loving these teams more than professional teams. It's like a religion. So it's really funny to relive someone giving themselves up for doing something so stupid. But at the same time, that's how serious it is. And, we've talked about how, Ben's nephew, Luke, was getting harassed on Twitter. And, these Auburn kids and this quarterback Thorne have been really getting it at Auburn this week. So it goes on all across the country. But I think in the South, there's a lot more pressure than anywhere else.
And Peyton Thorne did not have a good game on Saturday. He threw 4 interceptions, and we'll get into that. John Romero, kind of scary. The ignorant people on planet Earth is what that clip brings forth. Yes. I don't know what my favorite part of that call is, if it's when he says, "Hey, Paul, how you doing?"
Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Or "Roll Damn Tide" to end.
Roll Damn Tide.
Rick and I have a friend, and I was telling him on Sunday he should call into the local show and call into Jeff Simeon. And I love Jeff and JJ, but just call him and be like, "Hey, Paul, how you doing?" And just tell Jeff that. And he's like, just say, "Well, my name's not Jeff," but anyway, and then say how he was going to go down to Cruces and do something, which he's not. It was just a joke. But anyway, we're going to take a quick commercial break. That joke probably failed. We will take a quick commercial break, and then we'll be back with Ben Wysong. And I can't believe I'm saying this. We're going to bring Ben Wysong to talk about Auburn's big package. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook! I said let him cook!
Excuse me as I bring up Auburn and Cal highlights. Hey, welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. I'm joined by Rick Thompson. And I'm going to bring Ben Wysong in. I need to come up with something corny since he joins us every week, like ESPN does. Here he is. His name is Mr. Ben Wysong, a former linebacker, Lobo back for the University of New Mexico. And his nephews play on the team, Luke and Evan. And it was Evan's birthday yesterday, right?
It was, yeah. I think the kid's already like 20 years old. And I'm like, gosh, dude, where'd the time go?
Trust me. I look at my kid, and I looked at my kid the other, or my kid looked at my mom and I the other day, and he looked at he calls her Nana, and he was like, "I'm going to be 8 and 8. I'm going to be 8 and 8 months now." And I was like, "No, you're not, because that means I'm pushing 40." Anyway, all right. We had a bye week. And you know what? I'm going to start here before I go to Hugh Freeze's big package. Feeling lucky? Take a spin in our Route 66 Catino Hotel slot machine for a chance to win Lobo prizes, free Laguna Burger, or a tailgate package at our Lobo homecoming game. Good luck, Lobo fans. Winner selected on 9/16. Rick, how do you feel about that? I now that I read that, I thought it was like a slot machine at Route 66, but I guess you can just win Laguna Burger.
If it's online, I'm gonna go play it right now, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Laguna Burger, and I'm not just saying that. They're not a sponsor. It's good. And I'm not that far from Route 66. Hey, right off 5-10 minutes outside Albuquerque, west on I-40. There you go, Route 66. All right, I'm going to start here, and I want to thank Next Round Live, and then Unnecessary Roughness from Barstool Sports. I listen to them occasionally. Brandon Walker, who's a funny guy, he gives Dave Portnoy a bunch of shit. I'm 50-50 on Barstool. Don't think I'm plugging him here, but I love Brandon Walker. He's a funny guy, big Mississippi State honk. I think he went there. So you get this quote from Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze. I can promise you the package will not be big. And this is after Auburn, who was a 11.5-point favorite at home on the Plains in Auburn at Jordan Hare. Their quarterback, Peyton Thorne, was 14 of 27, 165 yards, a touchdown, and 4 interceptions. I had the over in this game, and it looked good in the first 5 minutes, then took a big fat dump in my pants. Mr. Wysong, did you catch any of the Auburn Cal game, and what did you think if you saw any highlights?
I did. Actually, I probably watched a good majority of the game. And, I mean, it was a good, hard-fought game. I mean, especially, hats off to Cal for stepping into that environment and basically just beating them at their own game. I mean, those guys came well prepared, and they were not intimidated in the least bit. You know, when you're playing in front of 80,000 fans, you know, that kind of changes, you know, things. But hats off to them. And as far as Auburn, I mean, they had their chances. It was a good game. It actually kind of reminded me of the game with UNM and Montana State, and to a certain degree, where, things were looking good. It was a good fought game. And then next thing you know, Cal just kind of took over there in that fourth quarter. And it didn't help either that, Peyton threw the 4 interceptions. And I think that also there was like a fumble that they had lost. That was a critical fumble. But it's going to be interesting this week because, especially with a loss like this and the amount of heat that Auburn's getting, what team are you going to get now? Are you going to get a team that's pissed off and ready just to take it out on the next person? Or you got, a team that's kind of still licking their wounds and trying to figure things out, especially when, Coach Reeves makes a comment like that where you got to, you're decreasing the package in a sense to simplify things. So when I read that, I'm kind of curious to see, in a sense, what's their quarterback situation going to be looking like? Because, when I hear they're going to bring a smaller package, is that because you're going to bring in the next quarterback and you're going to have to kind of, slow things down a bit? But I don't know. It's going to be a fun game though.
Yeah, that backup quarterback is Hank Brown, and
yeah,
I just wanted to hit on Peyton Thorne a little more. He came over from Michigan State, and he's thrown double-digit interceptions every year that he's played, and he's well on his way right now. And the Lobos have shown that they've been able to cause turnovers. So I think, if the Lobos are going to hang in this game, giving up yardage the way they have the first few games, it looks like this team is prone to turnovers, and that's something UNM can capitalize on, especially if this kid Thorne is a little rattled.
Absolutely.
Right, it does seem like his team has been supporting him this week. His coach said he has been the best player in practice, but at a certain point that has to play out on the field, right? So he's giving him a shorter leash. The pressure is on the quarterback, and all eyes are on him. So you're right, Ben. It could go one of two ways, and hopefully it goes the Lobos' way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is just another great opportunity for them. And I know we touched on it last week. I think this bye week couldn't have come at a better time for these guys, especially from an injury standpoint. Hopefully they can get some of these guys back. I'm hoping, just, because I'm a little bit closer with the receivers, but I'm really hoping Caleb can get back in there and he brings a whole nother dimension to that passing game, and it's just another element because I know Coach Mendenhall touched on that in the press conference earlier this week where he discussed, he's like, yeah, you got guys like Luke and Devin and, the running backs, but, we still need another, 2 to 3 more guys to step up to, kind of open up the playbook a little bit more and, make it harder to game plan against these guys. So hopefully this week was good for them, or last week the bye week was good for them, and they can, showcase it this Saturday. So especially in that environment. I mean, you guys know SEC country is a different world. You guys just touched on it. So
what do you think they
I didn't
can
know
do?
this, and I want to
I was just going to hit on that part really quick. What do you think they can do differently, though, to get Medford more involved? I mean, he only has 4 targets for 2 receptions. Trujillo only has 3 receptions. Is it something schematically they can do, or do you think it's just the way the games have played out so far and Dampier feeling comfortable with those guys?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, I know, especially for Caleb, I think he got hit with the injury bug. So I think that's kind of limited him as far as his production. And because I've noticed they haven't really played him until like the second half of each of the games, where I don't even know if he's even stepped on the field in the first half on either one. So I'm hoping with that by having Caleb in there, and then like you said, and I think you brought up a good point. I think the game kind of dictates whether these guys get the ball or not. Especially like in a game like Arizona where when you're down by 21, I mean, you don't really have much of a choice except, go for the long ball, or you're going to pick up majority of yards on the pass, compared to the run. So, and then also with the run, it just eats up the clock. So you're fighting multiple battles in that regard. So that's why I'm hoping, Caleb can step in. Hopefully Nick can have a better game. I know he was a little frustrated last week because he had a couple balls thrown his way that just couldn't, come up with them. But it's going to be a good test for these guys.
Well, you mentioned SEC country, and I didn't realize this, that Jordan Hare holds just over 87,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insanity to me. You'll be there. We'll talk about that in a bit. I guess the elephant in the room, if it is an elephant in the room, is the fact that New Mexico State went in there last year and beat them as like 28.5-point underdogs. I know that the country seems to think that New Mexico State and UNM are one, despite the fact that the logo of one is Tom Selleck holding guns like Quigley Down Under, and then the other is an actual animal. Do you, Ben, think that Auburn and Hugh Freeze have this marked, even though it's not New Mexico State, because New Mexico's in the school name?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm just going to give the benefit out. I mean, these coaches, I mean, they know their opponents, maybe not so much the fans, especially in that part of the world. I mean, I remember living in Cincinnati, when UNM was playing in the men's basketball tournament, expected to be, I think they were the 4th seed or the 3rd seed. It was like back in 11 or 12. And no one knew. They were like, hey, they're going to go to the Final Four and blah. I'm like, okay. I mean, good for you guys on your bracket, but they're like, well, tell us about New Mexico, because we have no idea about it. And it's even worse down south. They have no idea. I mean, even like was it 2 years ago when we were down in LSU? I mean, those guys thought we were in the FCS, so they had no idea, as far as, the program, anything about us. Now maybe if you would have asked that question, I don't know, back when it was like 2005, 6, when we were playing Missouri and Oregon State and those guys, I mean, they knew who we were at that time, but, a lot's happened since then.
And I think Hugh Freeze's seat is getting pretty hot. He's 7-8 so far, right? And just came off an upset win last week, and he's getting his ass fired up by the media this week. So I don't think it would matter who they're playing, really.
Exactly.
But it's the Lobos got to be locked in, because Auburn has a lot to prove this week.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially for a quarterback like Peyton. I mean, I believe he's a senior, so he's on the tail end on his college career. So I mean, I'm sure there's an added fire with that, and we'll see how he can handle, as far as with the stress. I saw an interview he was doing earlier this week where I guess he was saying that people were hitting him up on Venmo to pay them back for like the best they lost. I was like, are you kidding me, man? Like that's terrible. So, but this is the world we live in now. This is college ball. Everyone has an opinion, not to bring up the whole Mike Tyson reference, but
it's true. Yeah. And he is a senior, and he got hit up on Venmo.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a starting quarterback, I wonder if there's anybody who's watching this from the SEC now, like these New Mexico guys are talking. But if you're starting quarterback in the SEC, I mean, he's like a hop, skip, and jump away from probably being on an NFL roster, except when you go 14 of 27 for 165 yards and you're picked off by Cal. Cal's defense was supposed to be paper thin, and they looked, anybody can look like the 86 Bears when you throw 4 interceptions, but they looked good. I mean, that game was, I had it on. I had that game on because, again, I had the over, and I was watching whatever on this TV, and then I've got my monitors here. So I have YouTube TV, and I had like 4 games on at once. And I was watching it, and of course I was texting Jacob, who's our betting guy. We were just like, this guy sucks. But again, that's a joke. I mean, I bet, but I'm not going to threaten the guy's life. Like, I'm the idiot losing money. That's the way I look at it. But what have I think, I don't know if I can't remember if we touched on this, but you mentioned Caleb may have been hit by the injury bug. And I went to both press conferences, and I kind of zoned out on Monday what Bronco was saying, because he's like this. He's always on time. But you've played college ball. They have 3 bye weeks. They are now like a quarter of the way through the season, which blows my mind. A quarter way through the season, especially with that week 0 game. He did mention there were injuries. He wasn't specific. I'm asking you, and I'll probably throw this to Rick since he played football, but at a college level, I mean, how do you probably have to relish. I mean, it's a gift and a curse, but you probably have to relish for the fact that you have 3 bye weeks and you have a bye week now going to SEC country.
Right. And I mean, I think me personally looking at this bye week, I would embrace it. Especially considering the 2 weeks that UNM has just had. You know, they played a hard-fought game in Arizona, and then they, you know, pretty much played a very emotional game against Montana State. So having that break, you know, for these guys to basically just hit the reset button and just kind of focus on fundamentals and, you know, maybe just look at the schemes, you know, I think it's great. And, you know, for us, I mean, especially with Coach Long, you know, playing under him, you know, bye weeks, you know, he always said that's a great opportunity to get better and to really just dial in on stuff that we need to get worked on. So I think it's a good thing, you know, especially at this time of year, you know, and, you know, hopefully, you know, especially with an SEC game, that's big in itself. And then kind of hopefully too, going forward with it is that they can maybe start getting like a groove as far as, you know, their offense, you know, and especially their defense, you know, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. But then also, then again, you have the other side of the sword where, you know, you go 2 weeks of playing football and next thing you have a break. So does that kill your momentum as far as what you have going on as far as game time? So I guess it just depends on how you look at it. Depending on the year and, you know, depending who we're playing next, I mean, bye weeks were either good or they just flat out sucked because, I mean, I know with Coach Long, it was basically 2 days all over again and you were just beating each other up again for that next week, you know, so you're back to hitting you know, the same guys over and over again. But after a while, you kind of learn to appreciate them.
Yeah, and I think as a player, you probably do hate it because what you love doing is playing, and practice isn't your favorite thing. Talking about Thorne not being that sharp, but the Lobos defense has also not been sharp in any way so far outside of being able to cause those turnovers. You know, averaging almost 600 yards a game, 300 on land and air.
Yeah.
What can they do in your eyes? Is there anything they can do differently to slow down some of these offenses and kind of keep them off the field so they're not just constantly on the field and tiring out you know, the defense? Because we know the offense can put up points, and that's been shown, you know, through these first 2 games. So is there anything schematically or differently that you think they can do from watching these first 2 games?
Yeah, I think, you know, from a schematic standpoint, at least now with the defense, they have 2 games, you know, to watch film on with Auburn, you know, especially with, you know, the game that they just went through last week, you know, when Hugh Freeze makes the comment of, you know, hey, we're going to simplify the playbook, you know, per se. So, you know, got film on plays that maybe that, you know, they weren't planning on using against Cal, but now they had to throw them in there just to basically try to get a win out of it. So, you know, there's that aspect of it. And then, you know, from watching film with them, I love the intensity that these guys are playing with. I mean, these guys have been playing, you know, their asses off, you know, from the first play to the very last play of the game. So I can't knock those guys on that at all. I mean, these guys do bring it every time. I think, you know, in some of these plays, you know, especially like looking back at the Arizona game, maybe they just need to like just slow it down, slow the pace down, you know, and just, you know, get back to alignment, assignment, and technique. And, you know, if you can accomplish those 3 things, that takes care of like 85 to 90% of, you know, of the game. So, and depending on what they have this Saturday too, as far as personnel wise, I mean, maybe being able to rotate these guys in a little bit more, you know, especially like the D line, for example, or even the linebackers. I know Coach Long, he was big on rotating our D line every 3 plays just to keep everybody fresh. So depending on the pace of the game, and, you know, as far as Auburn, how fast they like to run that pace, you know, that could be a factor too. So I think I saw something where Mendenhall's been having those guys blare the speakers at practice. So there's another element that you got to factor into as well. So I think the good thing they got going for them, though, is, you know, playing down at Arizona, that's a pretty cool environment itself. I mean, granted, it's not 87,000, but it's still something. I mean, once it gets to that level, it all kind of blends in together. It's just a matter at that point of how rowdy your fans can get in that sense. So when after hearing the whole, you know, the tumors, I mean, those Auburn fans they're wild.
It
So
it never gets old to me.
Roll down tide.
I don't know the phone call. Hey Paul, how you doing?
Hey Paul,
Yeah.
how you doing?
So apparently there were scouts at Lobo practice on Tuesday. The Packers and the Jags. I think probably your nephew has to be thrown in there because of the way he's played.
I did not know that.
I read that.
Yeah,
in
I mean,
Sean
when you hear
Ryder's
that
article.
now,
Oh, he did. Okay.
yeah. When you hear that, I know your uncle, and I know you went to UNM. I don't know when you hear that, how does that make you feel?
I mean, from the uncle standpoint, I mean, I think it's awesome. I mean, it's cool that, not even just for Luke though, because I mean, if anything, for the rest of the team, because I mean, it could be one of those things where a scouts are there to maybe look at one player, then next thing you know, there's another player that's performing his ass off in practice, and they're like, oh, okay, here's someone else that we can look at. I mean, from Luke's standpoint, I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I mean, the kid's just been playing his butt off, and he wants more than anything for this team to win. Though I think for Luke, I mean, as cool as all of this stuff is, I don't think those 3 letters are even in his chamber right now. So, I mean, maybe once we get after the season, all that stuff, cool. I don't know what Luke's going to do, but if I was a betting person, I would say he's going to finish his entire career at UNM. So, I mean, he loves this program. He loves his coaches. So, but yeah, we'll see. I think it's cool. I think it's cool for the team in general because, I mean, heck, I remember back when I think it was our senior year and we would have scouts there looking at Quincy Black. And you're like, holy shit, like, here's the guy from the 49ers standing right here and, just chatting it up. And the next thing you know, practice is wild because you got scouts there and you got first team O and first team D just going at each other, maybe the occasional fight every now and then. So it was fun.
Yes. Quincy, I'm not trying to go off subject. Quincy was good, man.
He was a freak.
I don't know.
I'm telling you right now, looking back at just all the players I played with, he was probably the most athletic person overall. I mean, when you got a guy who's like 6'2", 6'3", and I think at the time he was like 225, but the guy was like 4% body fat. I mean, it was ridiculous, and then he goes to the combine and does he run like a 4.42 40 as a linebacker? I'm like, dude, get out of here. Like, just stop. So I loved it. I love playing with him. Quincy was awesome. Super good dude.
One thing, Ben, since we're kind of talking about positions here, I read in Sean Ryder's article also earlier today is that Lobo safety Hunter Wiggins is now getting some time at linebacker position. Mm-hmm. He only weighs about 197, maybe 200 pounds. And he said the first time he went into one of the gaps, one of the guards just picked him up and kind of tossed him.
Yeah.
As somebody that played that Lobo back position, and I'm guessing both linebacker and safety, can you talk a little bit about the differences in the positions and what he might be overcoming by coming to play linebacker from the secondary?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. So, I mean, from a linebacker standpoint, you are basically, you're part of that front 7-6, depending on the defense. But yeah, you're definitely filling a gap at that point. You are gap sounds. You are ready to plug the hole right away compared to, the Lobo position or even, safety for sure. Lobo was great because you got to do a combination of both. And I'm glad we brought up someone like Quincy because Quincy, I think, and even if you go back to Brian Urlacher, those two were like the quintessential Lobo backs because those two had the speed to pretty much hang with almost anybody that you covered, from a coverage standpoint. But the beauty of the Lobo position, too, is that not only do you have a guy that can cover, but you can also send a guy on a blitz, especially whether it be from, on the perimeter on the outside or, I mean, depending on the package that you got going on or what Coach Mendenhall's running, I mean, you could send him through the B, maybe even the A gap if you wanted to, just depending on what blocking schemes that Auburn's got going on and what personnel they have. But, I mean, I'm going to tell you, though, I mean, what Hunter experienced, we all experienced it at one point during practice. I mean, I remember when I got moved to Lobo back and I think Hank was playing the slot at one point, and I just remember they threw a swing pass out to Dontrell, and next thing you knew, I was on my ass and Hank is just looking right over me, and I figured it out right away, like, hey, when you get backed up a little bit on that defense, you got to keep your head on the swivel a little bit more. And even like blitzing with the line. I mean, shoot, at that time we had guys like Robert Turner, Claude Terrell, those kind of guys. So yeah, it was rough. And I mean, Hunter, I know he will. I got all the confidence in him. I met him, and he's a great guy. He plays intense, so he'll figure it out. I think it's just like anything else. Once you get hit that first time, it teaches you.
I have a fantastic Robert Turner story before we let you go.
Oh, please tell me. I got plenty for you too.
God. So, well, then you're gonna have to tell. And he played for the Jets.
No, you go first. We'll chat later.
Okay. So how, okay. I guess it has a rated R story. But anyway, our story was when we sat behind the bench when I was in high school, junior and senior year. My buddy Mike, my buddy Steven, we loved Robert Turner because he would always get the fans amped up, and we were right there.
Yeah.
But he was a big. I mean, the guy played in NFL, so I'm sure he was wired completely different. I mean, I know football players are wired different, but he was probably, and he was a damn good lineman. But he would get guys amps, and he had his hair, and he was just always soaking. But he was this big, and I'm not talking shit about him. I love him.
No, because I'm just totally picturing it too. I'm like, okay, I can see this.
He would walk up to us, but he'd have just the Gatorade cup, not like a helmet, but the paper Gatorade cup. And he would have it, he'd drink it, and he'd throw it on his head, and he'd smash it on his head, and he'd get him amped. And we loved it, but we were like, it's just a fucking Gatorade.
It's just a paper cup.
But he was like, he was looking at us like, let's fucking go. And then he was smashing a paper cup on his head.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would thought it was awesome that he was with the Jets, but he was, man, I always think about those lines. It was just a different time before the Mike Locks era. It truly was. I want to throw this stat at you, and I want to thank Rick for all these stats today and notes. As of right now, these are the bowl predictions for the Mountain West Conference per FPI. Boise State's at 97.2%. Fresno's at 81.4%. UNLV's at 81.4%. Nevada's at 64.1%. CSU's at 33. They've looked good.
Yeah.
And then CSU's at 33.1%. They play Colorado and Fart Collins on Saturday night. And it rounds it out here. UNM is at 19.4% and Wyoming is at 15.4%. I mean, when I hear that, and again, just for what we've seen from the program, and again, I love Danny, this is a team that was the two teams that were picked bottom feeders have looked, and I mean, they're just preseason rankings by dipshits like me, the media guys, but that's another positive. I know it's not 50% or 60%, but at 20% to me, that's good news.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, especially considering, the offseason that they just had, you brought in a whole new coaching staff and, I mean, basically a brand new, 2/3 of a football team, and these guys are still figuring it out. I mean, I would be happy with those numbers, just from the outsider perspective, and even, I was, talking with my wife of all people about it because she follows it just as much as I do. Looking at their schedule, I mean, looking at this year, I mean, it's a reality. They avoided Boise this year. They avoid UNLV. Who was it? San Jose State looks decent. I think they just went in and beat Air Force, which is, I mean, that's no easy task to do over in Colorado or in, Colorado Springs, so, and then even then, like looking at it, from the Mountain West standpoint, I mean, yeah, Fresno will be a good game. I mean, especially, we've won, 2 out of the last 3 against those guys. So I'm sure those guys are probably pretty pissed off. Wyoming, they got it down here, so that could be, definitely, a possible win for us. Air Force doesn't appear to be the Air Force of old. So that could, hey, you never know. And it's a home game for us. So I think the possibility is there, and you brought up a good point, Ryan, the other week where, hopefully this Montana State game doesn't bite us in the ass when we get down to week 13 and, we, pull one off against Hawaii, and then we're sitting here waiting to see what's going to happen. So, yeah, but I mean, it's encouraging, It's definitely something to feed off of. It's better than a big old goose egg, in my opinion.
And the thing we have to remember, that's as of right now with
Yeah.
2 losses. So that means they still think the Lobos can get to 6 or 7 wins from right
Exactly.
now with 2 already down. So
Yeah.
and I mean, I think they have shown it. So I agree with you, and I hope it doesn't come down to that last game, but I think it
know.
might. They do have probably one of the easier schedules of the conference, and only playing 7 league games this year with having to play in Washington State. And do they
Yeah.
play Oregon or no?
I don't think
Or
they have them
No,
this year.
just
I
Washington
think it's
State.
next year that I don't know if they're going to flip flop, but if I had to bet, it was next year.
no,
There's no
they're
Pac-12 next year.
no, they're
Oh, that's
ending
right.
that
Okay.
next year. So they get Washington State here. I mean, we don't know what they'll look like in November, but right now they can score some points.
Because that's our last home game, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah. I'm in New York, New Jersey that weekend for the
Yeah.
St. John's basketball game. I'm kind of bummed about that. And then I'll be in Vegas for the UCLA basketball game when they play San Diego State. So I don't know how we're going to I don't know how we're going to tackle that weekend.
It's
Rick,
hard
do
to
you have
say no
anything?
with basketball in Vegas, man. It's hard to say no to that.
Wait, you're going to tell me Vegas or San Diego over Central New Jersey and Albuquerque?
Right.
Yeah. And if you've never been to Central New Jersey, anyway, hey, it looks great.
Yeah.
Rick, do you have anything else for Ben?
No, Ben, I'm just looking forward to what you have to bring us when you get down there to see
Absolutely.
what it's like down south. Be careful, stay in packs, and do your job to support us down there.
Yeah, absolutely will do. No, I'm definitely excited to be going down there and chiming in that morning of the game day, with you guys and talking some football. Maybe see if I can somehow pull like a live video feed, if that'd be, But yeah, it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited. So, it's 5:30 kickoff, so a little later in the day, which would be fun. So it gives us the whole day to kind of settle in and see what it's all about.
Plenty of time for Fireball and Bud Light. All right. His name is Ben Wysong. He's a former linebacker, Lobo back for the University of New Mexico. He will check in with us Saturday morning from the home of the Round Mound of Rebound, Auburn, Alabama, and War Eagle. His name's Ben Wysong. Ben, we appreciate you, man. Thanks for always joining us this week.
Yeah.
I don't know. We need to come up with something weekly for you, but
We're going to come up with a name for your segment.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll try to think of some stuff. So send it on over to you guys.
Perfect. Ben, safe travels. We'll talk to you Saturday morning.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Go Lobos.
All righty. We will be right back with Nick Coppola. I swear to God, I hope I said it right that time. Take a quick commercial break. If I can find the commercial breaks. There we go.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
our head coach of our Louisville football program, Bronco Mendenhall.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel on Sunday, September 22nd to end ALS. We've high-fived thousands of participants, raised millions of dollars, and impacted hundreds of families. With your help, the good keeps growing. Register at walkandwheelnm.org. See you there.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. I want to appreciate Ben Wysong. Want to thank Ben Wysong, Rick Thompson, and Katie Crouch from ALS New Mexico. She's the president and CEO over there. All right, we are going to jump into our Aggie segment, and I believe I pronounced his last name right tonight. Nick Coppola. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. And you did pronounce my last name right on the first try. So congratulations. Yeah, you do deserve a clap. There you go. That was
I'm gonna pat myself on the back.
There you go. There you go.
By the way, for those who didn't know, he is the New Mexico State athletic beat writer, and he covers high school sports down south for the Las Cruces Sun News. All right, Nick, it was quite the back and forth defensive punch with what I was able to watch. I was hitting a parlay and New Mexico State covered for me. So yes, in a 30-24 loss that New Mexico State seemed to have control the entire game. I feel like New Mexico State over the last 2 years, Liberty has their number. This is the first Liberty NMSU game in Conference USA you've covered. What did you take away from this 30-24 loss?
Yeah, so it was a very back and forth game, and a game that New Mexico State controlled for the most part for most of the game. They really only lost it in those final 2-5 minutes right there at the end of the game. A big thing that they emphasized going into the week and going into Saturday was really stopping explosive plays from their offense and explosive rushing plays. I think they gave up a combined 1,200 yards of total offense in both of their matchups with Liberty last year. And they couldn't really contain Quentin Cooley, who's their running back, at all. And for the first 3.5 quarters, they did that. They only had one rushing play above 6 yards until Quentin Cooley started getting going and scoring his touchdowns and things like that. And just the floodgates open there at the end of it. I mean, we can of course blame the defense for giving up those touchdowns in the final 5 minutes or so. And I mean, they did run out of gas there a little bit. They did kind of lose their focus there a little bit, but also the offense just wasn't really that good. They scored on their first 3 drives. They got a field goal and then 2 touchdowns. One of them being a 64-yard touchdown on a screen pass. But after that, they had 10 more drives, excluding a kneel down before halftime. 9 of those were non-scoring. And they had a stretch of about, I think they had 5 or 6 punts in a row or something like that. They just had a stretch where they could not get anything going on offense at all. And I mean, Liberty had that too, but then Liberty eventually woke up and New Mexico State just kind of didn't. And then when they went behind, Liberty forced them into some passing situations with their touchdowns, and New Mexico State's passing game really struggled in the second half. And so it was just a game that kind of gradually ebbed away for the Aggies, and they really got no one to blame but themselves for it. They got to get going on offense, and the defense can't lose focus like that at the end of the game.
You kind of mentioned it, but how impressive was it to keep a running back? He's probably a second, third, fourth round draft pick in Quentin Cooley. They kept him to 10 yards at the first half, 20 yards to the fourth, and then those floodgates did open up. And I know maybe you already answered it. I mean, but how impressive was that? This Liberty team has ran over everybody other than Oregon essentially the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I was really surprised that they were able to contain him for as long as they did in the game up until the end of the fourth quarter. I thought they were gonna do what they did last year. They were gonna have some pretty productive offensive plays whenever they wanted to. But this is a new look New Mexico State defense, and they emphasized that all week. They got a new defensive coordinator. Most of their starters are new. So Liberty was essentially going up against a completely new defense for the most part, and they did well. They got a defensive coordinator from Sam Houston, and they did a good job at somewhat limiting Liberty's offense when they played the Bearcats last season. So I was surprised. Maybe I shouldn't have been. And then of course Tony Sanchez attributed it to fatigue. We got to talk to Booty Paletti post game too. He just attributed it to the fact they got complacent, they lost focus, and things like that. For me, it's probably a combination of both. But I was very surprised that it was able to happen, and it probably wouldn't have mattered if the floodgates open in the fourth quarter if their offense just score points in the fourth quarter, or really the entire second half.
You kind of touched on it again, so fantastic job with the ESP here. But Tony Sanchez did say, quote, after the game, "We were kind of out of gas and they stopped us." I mean, has he mentioned this week how they fixed that?
You know what? He didn't really mention that on Monday. I just feel like it's a case of, they just got to get the offense more going, and maybe it won't matter if the defense, it gets fatigued afterwards. Post game, he specifically mentioned first down offense. And after going through some of the drives and some of the plays they had, he was right. Of those 10 drives after their three scoring drives, 9 of those were non-scoring, like I said, but 6 of those 9 started with a play of 3 yards or less, and it really put them behind the 8 ball a lot. And so, they just were really in situations where they had to go through second and longs and third and longs and things like that. And like I said, New Mexico State's passing game was really, really struggling. It started off well. They went 6 of 8 for 109 yards, or Parker Waugh did. And then, he went 3 of 14 the rest of the way for only like 40-some passing yards, and they just couldn't pass the ball. And especially you can't do that when you got to go through your final drive and you can't pass the ball. And so how are you going to expect to go 80 yards down the field in a minute when you haven't been passing the ball well all game, especially in the second half. So I believe they just got to get the offense more going. They just can't be that one-dimensional, and you can't be that one-dimensional against a team like Liberty.
Joined by Nick Coppola, the New York, Las Cruces Sun News. Dear Lord, going to give you a really big accolade there and a credit with the New York Times or something, or Sports New York.
That'd be pretty cool if I worked for the New York Times.
I mean, that makes 2 of us. And I used to work in the city. Caden Salter didn't have that great of a game. 16 of 29, 256 yards. He didn't throw a touchdown, but he didn't turn over the ball. Did New Mexico State did what they had to do against him? I mean, he's a dynamic player. He's a dark horse going into the season as a Heisman Trophy candidate. I mean, again, I think this game speaks volumes of what New Mexico State's defense looked like.
Yeah, I think they did overall a pretty solid job against Caden Salter, which again really surprised me because Salter is a good quarterback. They did have a few explosive passing plays. Specifically, they got Trent Sibley, the ball a lot on explosive passing plays. I think he had a couple catches over 30 yards. He had a catch for 63 yards. So they were able to open the passing game up a little bit. I think overall, if you told Tony Sanchez that you're going to limit Caden Salter to 256 passing yards and only 16 completions and no touchdowns and a quarterback rating of 36, I think he'd be thrilled with that. And New Mexico State fans would be thrilled with that. And overall, the defense did well. And again, if the offense just scored a little bit more points and got going when it really needed to put the game away, it wouldn't matter if they just folded on those final drives because they would have the lead to back it up. And So yeah, I think overall the defense did pretty solid. And I mean, one of the touchdowns that Liberty scored in the fourth quarter wasn't even offensive. I think overall they did a pretty good job.
Don't turn over the ball in special teams. I got to go to this comment really quick. I don't like to do it when I'm on with guests, but the crew that worked the NMSU game has to be tired of doing New Mexico teams already. LOL. They did UNM and AZ game. Well, that they're getting paid to watch sports. Monte Watkins had the one reception for 64 yards. It was a touchdown. Seth McGowan had a great game. He had a touchdown reception, 15 carries, and then 66 yards on the ground. These are New Mexico State's playmakers. It looked like they got a little bit more involved in this game. How do they use them going forward against Fresno State this weekend and into the season?
Yeah, right now, those three running backs, McGowan, Watkins, and Mike Washington, seem to be the entire New Mexico State offense for the sole reason that they don't really have a passing game right now. The offense is going to be heavily reliant on those guys, especially Seth McGowan, because they don't really have the passing game to open up any other options. So, and all three of those guys are really talented players. It's the three of the best offensive players that they have. So you want to get them involved regardless of whether your passing offense is going through struggles. But yeah, I do think they're going to continue to be extremely reliant on them in both the running and passing games. We talked to Tony after the game, and I asked him, just do you want to open up the passing game, or do you want to give more opportunities to your receivers? Do you want to be as rush reliant as you are? And he basically said that that's what he wants the team's identity to be is a running team, and it was evidenced by the play calls. They ran the ball 44 times. That was more than they ran it last week or the week before against the Southeast Missouri. And so, I mean, those three, if New Mexico State is going to make a play, if New Mexico State is going to score, it's very likely going to come from one of those three guys. And McGowan's got, I think, two of their four offensive touchdowns, or two of their five offensive touchdowns. He's the only one with multiple touchdowns, I mean. And so, yeah, I mean, if they're going to make a play, they're going to be one of those three guys, but you have to question whether or not if that's going to be enough. And if eventually you're going to need a passing game, because Mexico State's got some talented receivers. They just don't really have a quarterback right now that can get them the ball consistently. And so I think that's the main problem with their offense right now.
I wanted to ask you a few more questions about the Liberty game. First, the attendance, they announced close to 17,000 people, or just over 16,000. That seems like it's been more that's been in that stadium in a while, and especially the fact that they were good last year. I'm surprised it's not full. How was the crowd Saturday night at Aggie Memorial?
I thought it was good. Obviously the attendance, it's definitely going to be good for a lot of New Mexico State fans. It's a big increase of what they had last week. And I figured it'd be, this is one of the biggest games they'll play all season, and Liberty is one of the best teams they'll play all season. So that probably brought a lot more people to the crowd. It kind of dissipated in the fourth quarter. A lot of students left. There weren't. I'd say the vast majority of students did not stick around for the entire game. So you don't really want to see that. The crowd definitely looked less full. I'd say it maybe got down to around maybe like 10,000, maybe 11,000 by the time the game ended. So there were a lot of people that did leave before the game was over. But the announced crowd, it was certainly rocking at the first half. It was certainly a good crowd, and obviously close to 17,000. It's a pretty good crowd for New Mexico State football.
I know. I was shocked to see when they showed. I think they panned to it in the first half. I was like, good for New Mexico State. I was happy to see that. I got to ask you about before we get to Fresno State real quick. I got to ask you about Liberty's uniforms. I'm not politics and other things aside. I can think whatever I want about Liberty. I'm not going to say it on the show. I do like Caden Salter. I think he's a phenomenal quarter. I mean, I think he transferred from a P5. And then Quentin Conley, he's again, fantastic running back, and they've got some weapons at wide receiver, but those uniforms and the bird, I don't know what it is. Were those cool to see in person?
I mean, the jerseys were. I do like powder blue uniforms, and so I definitely did like to see that from Liberty. And they're like navy or dark blue or whatever color their helmets was. The color was cool. I did not understand the bird. I did not really like the bird logo. I was looking at some of the photos one of our freelance photographers at the game took, and that was the first time I actually got a good look at their helmets. And I was looking at that logo, and I'm like, that's not the LU logo that I really see from Liberty. And it's just, I just zoom in a little bit, and it's just a bird, and it's like the ugliest bird I've ever seen. So I just didn't really. I wasn't really a fan of the helmets. I do really like their jerseys, though. Like I said, I really do like powder blue.
It looked good on TV. I will applaud Liberty there. Turning our gears towards a familiar foe for New Mexico State, who I think they've played twice in the last year, or it'll be 3 times. I think they obviously got them in the bowl game last year in the New Mexico Bowl, which New Mexico State made University Stadium like Aggie Memorial times 2. They get Fresno State in Fresno. It's 8:30 Mountain Time on True TV. This is a bit of each head coach knows each other. Tony Sanchez, Tim Skipper, the head coach of Fresno, who just took over for oh my goodness, the name is escaping me, Jeff Tedford. Tim Skipper was defensive coordinator for Tony Sanchez his last 2 years at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. What did Tony Sanchez have to say about going up against a friend of his this week?
Yeah, he's excited. You know, he called Tim Skipper a friend in the press conference this week. He says he's a very fiery guy, just like him. He's very articulate. He also said that about him. And from Tony Sanchez's perspective, it seems like there's a lot of similarities between him and Tim Skipper. You know, both are very passionate, fiery, intense guys. Both getting a chance to now coach there at their alma mater. In their first season. So yeah, I think he's very much looking forward to the challenge. He's looking forward to playing him, and I think because he does know him, he knows a little bit of how I guess they're going to prepare and how they're going to, I guess, just be and stuff like that. Obviously, some schematic things you might learn on game day or things like that. But I do think he knows his personality and what he will translate from his personality into the team. And so I do think he's prepared a little bit for that. And it's probably exciting when you get to coach against one of your friends. And so, I think he's definitely eager for it.
You've got a pretty good Fresno State team. Mikey Keene is a phenomenal quarterback, arguably maybe one of the better or if best in the Mountain West Conference. Everybody's name escapes me. Don't get over Malik Sherrod, running back. Fresno always brings it. Tim Skipper has done a great job there. He did a good job in the bowl game. He kind of got thrown in with Jeff Tedford, and I think, I don't know if he's acting interim head coach or if he is the head coach. How does this New Mexico State defense that has played well, how do they try to beat Fresno State?
Probably, I would imagine they probably go with a similar strategy the way they beat Kadon Salter, or the way they went up against Kadon Salter of Liberty, because they did a pretty good job of limiting him and things like that. They got to limit the explosive passing plays because there are a bit too many of those probably for New Mexico State's liking in that game. They got they got to limit that. So that was pretty much the only way Liberty was moving the ball through the air anyway. But you got to limit that. But if they do, I think they'll have another good outing, maybe on defense because of that. I honestly don't know much about Fresno State's quarterback, but apart from what you told me right now, but I imagine they'll approach it the same way. I think a lot of people expected Salter to torch New Mexico State, and he didn't exactly do that. So maybe the same thing will happen with Fresno's quarterback this week, and they're certainly going to need it, especially if their own quarterback struggles continue.
Watch the New Mexico Bowl. Mikey Keene did a fantastic job in that game. And I know I joke on the show, but I try to call it as I sees it. Man, I like New Mexico State in the points last year in the New Mexico Bowl, and I was wrong. Very lastly, Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News. What the hell's going on with the Sooners, man? 16-12 against Houston.
Yeah, I didn't really get a chance to watch the second half because close to halftime I had to go off to AMS for the game. Yeah, I don't really know, man. I guess the offense just didn't really look all that great, or just out of sync and things like that. Maybe Jackson Arnold's still learning. Maybe he's just getting into the thick of things. But you definitely want to beat Houston by a lot more, especially since Houston got very humbled on their own home field by UNLV by 3 scores, and then their opener, and then they almost upset Oklahoma. Defense looks great. So there's that. I guess Brent Venables finally has his guys in the system ready to run what they want to run, and they're successful in that. But got to get the offense going more. And the offensive line is a big problem, especially since they've had some injuries to it. And then the offensive line already probably wasn't going to be that good anyway. And then you have injuries, and so it's probably going to be even worse. But yeah, I mean, there's still too many talented running backs and receivers and other skill players for them to be struggling like that. And Jackson Arnold's too talented of a quarterback to not be opening it up in the way that they are. So hopefully they got to kick it in gear. They got a chance to do that against Tulane before they play a really good Tennessee team. Good Tennessee team with a really good defensive line that might cause havoc for OU's offensive line. But Tulane is definitely the chance to pick back up before you go into the slog and the gauntlet that is their SEC schedule, which is probably tougher than most other teams in the conference.
Only behind Florida. Do you have an AP vote?
I do not. I'm assuming it's because I that would be a pretty cool thing to do in the future. I got to meet Sean Ryder, who got sent down to Las Cruces this past week, who has an AP vote, and he told me how people get involved in that and things like that. Apparently the AP and Ralph Russo just reach out to you and be like, hey, you want to do it? Which seems like maybe the process would be more sophisticated for the Associated Press. But yeah, I mean, that'd be a pretty cool thing to do in the future. And, maybe one day I will. Probably maybe just didn't happen this season just because I got the job very late. I don't even have a Conference USA vote to vote on weekly awards, and I probably won't even have one to name their all conference team just because I got here so late. But yeah, voting on stuff like that would be very cool to do.
I was just curious. Well, you'll get it soon enough, man. That was a dream of mine to get an AP vote for college football, but I don't know. Maybe someday if I can grow this thing. He is Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News with our New Mexico State Aggie check-in. I don't know. We need to come up with a name for this. Nick, I appreciate you. I admire you and Sean's work as young journalists. I've been there, done that. Not anymore because I sling computers and printers. But appreciate your time, man. We will bug you next week. Are you heading out to Fresno?
I am not. Most road games I'm probably going to be remote coverage here. I'll probably just cover from right here. Maybe I'll get to go to some games like Sam Houston or Texas A&M or things like that. But it is what it is. So
don't worry. Maybe the basketball team gets hot and you're in the NCAA tournament. Nick, thanks for joining us, man. We'll check in next week with you.
Thank you.
That was Nick Coppola from the Las Cruces Sun News, and I got his name right. I will be back to wrap this thing up. Come at me in the comment section, and I'll look at some of the comments. I will talk about Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt. My name is Ryan Tamori. This is the Pit Press Live. We'll be right back.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.
Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel on Sunday, September 22nd to end ALS. We've high-fived thousands of participants, raised millions of dollars, and impacted hundreds of families. With your help, the good keeps growing. Register at walkandwheelnm.org. See you there.
Our head coach of our local football program, Bronco Mantel.
The details themselves with the right preparation can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Welcome back to the Pit Press Live. My name is Ryan Tamori. I'm flying solo here to end the show. Again, comment, throw it at me, give me shit. Hold on just a second, because we have the Pac-12 is mobilizing a long-distance plan to rebuild the league with additions from the Mountain West. Sources tell Yahoo Sports Oregon State and Washington State are targeting both these states, San Diego State, Fresno State, and CSU. The schools are applying for membership. That is about 6 minutes ago from Rob Dellinger, and I am going to cut to share the screen. That is big news. Here's Rob Dellinger. So there you go. Read it and weep. I'm going to have to read that article. I'm not shocked. I think San Diego State got courted by the Big 12. So there you go. Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. I like Ross. He does a great job. Let me fix this real quick. Great live radio. Got to see my ugly mug. Great, fantastic live radio. I hope nobody snips that. I wanted to get to Vanderbilt. And by the way, Tulane, we were talking about Oklahoma. They have some nice transfers. Darian Mensah is from Oregon. Makai Hughes transfer there. He's the running back. He's good. They've got a really good couple of wide receivers. I think Mario Williams, Dante Fleming. Those guys are good, and they're all transfers. All right, Ryan, I know it's football season, and you guys are probably, but any other guests other than usual suspects like that you guys are talking about? We will try. Trying to fix this. What are you going to do? We are trying to get, I try to get as many guests as I can. Again, we didn't do a live show last night because we were not going to go up against the presidential debate. We're not going to go up against the NFL. I mean, we want to watch it too. But we're trying to bring you as much coverage. I'm trying to get as many people as I can. You know, I have contacts around the country. A few here in the Mountain West Conference and my contacts in New York. New York's really not a college football haven, but I am trying to see who we can get for Auburn. We had tons of Arizona coverage. I was on in Tucson on the Believe Network, and then Wildcat Radio 2.0, and then we had Cats Country on the I forgot his name. He was awesome. All those guys were awesome. I'm drawing a blank. As you guys probably know, my listeners, I'm terrible with names. One name that comes to mind, get a hold of former Lobo Holloman Wiggins, who's I'm trying to tell that. That'd be awesome. We were doing a Lobo Legend series with a lot of former basketball players, Royce Only, David Quixote. We were efforting Michael Cooper. That's on our YouTube channel. You can go check it out, and it's in podcast form. That we were trying to do as a conversation in podcast form. So check that out. And click like, and subscribe on all of our social media platforms. The artist formerly known as Twitter, on X at the Pit Press NM, YouTube, same at the Pit Press NM, Instagram, Facebook. Check us out. The liking and the subscribing on YouTube keeps us going. And we appreciate all of our sponsors: Affordable Solar, Affordable Service, Hydro Bar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room. Diego Pavia on Saturday against the Alcorn State Air McNairs, the Alcorn State Braves. They lost to Vanderbilt at home in Nashville, 55-0. It was 24-0 at the half, and Vanderbilt scored 21 in the fourth. I mean, I figured that's how it was going to do. That's how it was going to be. John Romero, here's your Heisman stat line: 10 of 13, 83 yards, no touchdowns, 13 carries for 51 yards and a touchdown for Diego Pavia against Vanderbilt. They won, but again, they get Georgia State this weekend, and they're at Georgia State, so they're in Atlanta. Then they're at Missouri, Alabama, at Kentucky. Kentucky looked like rat shit against a very bad, I mean, I guess a better South Carolina team than I thought. Ball State, Texas, Auburn, South Carolina, LSU, and Tennessee. They should be Ball State. I don't know about Kentucky. I don't know how you find a win the rest of the way after Georgia State and Ball State. That is a rough schedule. That is one of the hardest ones next to Florida and Oklahoma. Boy, oh boy. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Diego Pavia, but I don't know. Whew. That's got to be rough. And Cody Bellinger just homered, so I'm losing that bet. There we go. I mean, he's looked good. Again, I'm not taking anything away from Diego Pavia as I crash and burn here on by myself on the live show. We are thinking about doing, we're throwing around the idea of you being able to call in the show. I don't know how people feel about that. Might be entertaining after everybody comes on and guests, and it's just me hosting myself. So if you have any comments, feel free there. You can also email us at the pitpressnm@gmail.com. We will be live Saturday morning with the Morning How, 9 a.m. It's a UNM football pregame show. I am running out of gas. I am tired. Sounding like the New Mexico State defense. Appreciate Ben Wysong, Nick Coppola, President and CEO of ALS New Mexico, for joining us. They are having their, I got to bring it up and I feel terrible. Here it is. Again, not easy producing and hosting the show. 2024 Walk in Williston, ALS, September 22nd, 2024, UNM Track and Soccer Complex, about 9 a.m. Their website, NewMexicoALS.org. Go check it out. Appreciate it. We've kind of partnered with them. Again, I know Joe Cordova, and he's a super cool guy. So again, if you have to any little bit to donate, again, $5, check out the website or just Google 2024 Walk in Williston ALS on September 22nd. Here come so much for Commissioner Gloria Navarro saying the Mountain West is strong and we'll stick together. I like her a lot, but again, she's in a power of politics, position of politics. You can go listen to that interview with us on our YouTube channel. Eric and I talked to her. Kyle from the old New Mexico Pret might be a contact for the SEC. I think Eric has sent me that stuff. Yeah, we could talk to him. I know he covers Alabama, I think. If Eric's watching right now, I know he sent that to me, and I forgot the guy's name. Didn't even think about that this week. I am going to try to get somebody from Auburn who covers the team to join us Saturday morning. I mean, it's interesting there with what Peyton Thorne did on Saturday, basically handing the game to Cal. I mean, that was probably an easy over bet, and it didn't go that way when you throw 4 interceptions. I mean, you're not going to beat anybody when you're throwing 4 interceptions. Trying to see. No, that Cody Vicente, maybe get an invite after this year. Sad face. Don't know what you mean by that. I apologize. I just wanted to check some of the comments before I sign off. Let's go back to years kicking Auburn's ass, regardless of the UNM school. Kind of scary. Oh, I already read that one. Hey, we appreciate everybody listening. We do. We love our listeners. I am running out of steam. I'm losing energy. We will talk to you Saturday morning, 9 a.m., the Morning How. It's a UNM football pregame show. Once again, thankful to our sponsors, Affordable Service, Affordable Solar, Turquoise Desert Tap Room, and Hydro Bar. Everybody have a good Thursday and Friday night. We will talk to you Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Same Lobo time, same Lobo place. To the Pac-12, LOL. Yeah, now I got you. Sorry, see, I'm tired. I probably Conference USA or the Big Sky. Yeah, Otani is on his way, and they just blew that 2-run lead. There's my spread. Mets won today. Braves lost today. I believe that wild card is tied. Again, lastly, 2024 Walking Wheels to NALS, September 22nd, 2024. UNM Track and Soccer Complex. We will talk to you Saturday morning. Everybody have a good night. Have a good Thursday. Have a good Friday. Lobo out.
Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel on Sunday, September 22nd to end ALS. We've high-fived thousands of participants, raised millions of dollars, and impacted hundreds of families. With your help, the good keeps growing. Register at walkandwheelnm.org. See you there. Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel on Sunday, September 22nd to end ALS. We've high-fived thousands of participants, raised millions of dollars, and impacted hundreds of families. With your help, the good keeps growing. Register at walkandwheelnm.org. See you there. Join us for the annual Walk and Wheel.
Our head coach of our Lobo football program, Bronco Mandel.
The details themselves, with the right preparation, can separate you from mediocre competitors that don't do that. And so, yeah, the attention to detail, I think, drives the execution, or should I say brings the execution to life, especially in critical moments.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said let him cook.